For another week here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market like we are every Sunday at 10 a.m. When we aren't on air, make sure to follow us at The Duncan Duo. Again, that's at The Duncan Duo. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. We are there at The Duncan Duo. And I want to start off today's chat. Obviously, the last month plus in Tampa Bay has been pretty challenging. We got damage from two pretty devastating hurricanes, one with storm surge and the other with some pretty heavy winds. And then obviously storm surge a little further south from where I'm at today in St. Pete, recording at iHeart Studios. So we've had these two storms, and it has changed our real estate market in both the short term, the long term, and you're going to see a lot of changes in neighborhoods that are coastal, that are in flood areas, that have one-story single-family homes. So what I want to talk about next is what's called the 50% rule. So if you are listening to this show right now and you have storm damage and you're going through the process of deciding whether or not to renovate your home, whether it can be renovated, or whether or not you're looking to sell the property, we obviously always help with that. If you're looking to sell, you want a cash offer from an investor, you can do that at duncanduo.com. You can get a free home value estimate. We can help you sell it traditionally. We can help you take whichever path that you want to take down the path of selling your home at duncanduo.com. But there's a thing called a 50% rule from FEMA. If you're in a flood zone, FEMA, as well as the local municipalities, have a rule that if you are going to renovate a property, that you can't renovate it more than 50% of the structure's value. So I'll give you an example. The reason for that is because FEMA doesn't want to keep rebuilding homes and have them flood over and over and over again. So they want to build structures that are less likely to have massive damage. So single-story, one-story homes in a lot of these flooded out areas are going to have a hard time getting rebuilt, and here is why. They're going to have a hard time getting permits. It's going to force a lot of people to sell their homes, either to sell them as land, so a two-story structure that's more, or a structure that's more elevated can be built that can navigate around FEMA's rules and get it to a higher floodplain so it's not as likely to flood and have damage. But this 50% rule exists, and what it says, again, is that you can't spend more than 50% renovating or rebuilding a home than the structure's value. So an example, say you have a $500,000 property. The land's worth $200,000. The house is worth $300,000. And you have a quote for $200,000 to fix up your $300,000 house. In that instance, you'd be above the 50% rule, and you would have a hard time getting a permit, and frankly, might not be able to rebuild or renovate your house. So FEMA, if you go around the country to areas where massive flooding has happened from hurricanes or massive damage, you'll notice that a lot of the old single-story homes that used to exist ended up getting torn down, and two-story structures or three-story structures got built in their place because those were more, safe from flood damage, because FEMA doesn't want to keep paying out claims over and over again on the same properties. So they have this rule to basically say you're not going to, you're not going to renovate this home. You're not going to get a permit. You're not going to get okayed, or you're going to violate the FEMA rule. You're going to have insurance problems. So nonetheless, that rule exists to protect FEMA from, paying out again and again on the same properties, but also to try and make neighborhoods safer for flooding. So when you drive around South Tampa or Shore Acres or some of the coastal areas, or even, look at even stuff out in the burbs and Zephyr Hills and some areas close to rivers and ponds that flooded really bad or flood continually, FEMA wants two structure stories to be built. So they put this rule in place so that people couldn't rebuild. They would have to get their insurance payout and sell their property for land and then kind of move on. So that's basically what it is. It's not 50% of the value of the whole property. Okay. I want that to be clear. It's 50% of the value of the structure. Right. So if you have a $800,000 house and your lot's worth, $300,000 and your house is worth $500,000, then it's different. Then you have more that you have a higher dollar amount that you can renovate. There are a couple of easy ways to find that number. People will say, well, hey, how do I figure out what the value of the structure is? You can certainly get a private party appraisal and then subtract the land value or vacant land and try and argue that way. all of the counties also have structure value on the property appraiser website. So you can go onto the Pinellas County property appraiser website for your property, and there is a drop down with a FEMA building value that the county has determined. Now, that doesn't mean the county's always right. We know the county assesses stuff wrong sometimes in Pinellas County. They do the same in Hillsborough. That's why you have a process where you can dispute it. Or you can get your own private party appraisal to determine the structure value of the property to support you rebuilding it. But I believe that there are some consumers out there that are doing stuff without permits and are probably approaching or nearly approaching that 50% rule, and they're going to end up having problems with insurance, problems with inspections, problems with permitting. It's the one downside of the people that want to rebuild their structure very quickly and do some of the stuff themselves or hire it out and then go after insurance later, is that you may end up putting yourself in a position that you've got a house that you rebuilt, but it's not insurable because it wasn't permitted and your renovations exceeded the FEMA rule. So be very cautious right now. I know everyone wants to get their house back to normal. I know people want to get their lives back to normal, but there are definitely some people making mistakes, hiring their own contractors and doing their own repairs that are going to push that number and are going to have obstacles insuring their property, or they're doing stuff without permit. And look, I'm the first person to say that I don't love how the process works for some of the permitting that's happening right now and that was happening before the storms. I think all the counties locally require permits on some stuff that makes absolutely no sense to require a permit on. But guess what? That's tax dollars. So they got to get their tax dollars somehow because we don't have a state income tax. So nonetheless, the permit police are out. They're going through neighborhoods. They're looking for things that you're doing that you're not supposed to do. And if you do stuff without permit, you may end up having to tear it out. So just be cautious. I know you want to get your house back in order. I know you want to get your life back to normal. I know you want to repair your house, but you may be doing things that are going to inhibit your ability to sell the home later or inhibit your ability to get insurance or permitting on the property. So just be cautious about that as you navigate around the 50% rule. So again, you're listening to the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show here on WFLA News. We're here every Sunday at 10 at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, DuncanDuo.com. If you're looking to sell your property, if you're looking to sell your flood damaged property, if you're looking to sell a property that's turnkey, if you want a cash offer, if you just want to get out, if you're ready to leave Florida because of these storms, we can help you. Again, DuncanDuo.com for your cash offer, for your home value estimate, and so much more. We'd love the opportunity to help point you in the right direction and give you a plan. So a couple other things about the storm that I want to talk about. And it's this premise that I've heard people say, well, my house didn't get damaged, so it's probably worth more. So if you said, hey, my house didn't get damaged, I think it's worth more. The reality about your damaged home not damaged home that you think is worth more is that it isn't really just your home, it's your neighborhood. If your neighborhood and all the surrounding neighborhoods didn't get hit, then you're probably going to hold your value a little bit better than other properties. Okay. However, if you have a home that wasn't damaged and in your neighborhood, several other homes were damaged or were flooded out, the likelihood is it's still going to negatively impact your value. And here's why. Because some of those people may or may not have had insurance. Some of those people may be more desperate financially than you. And some of those people may turn into short sales or foreclosures. As I learned back during the Great Recession back in the mid-2000s when I did hundreds of short sales and foreclosures are what bring the values down in neighborhoods because the banks want to unload those properties quickly. And then that becomes the low comp for a neighborhood and it pulls everything down. So if you are in a neighborhood where homes are damaged, it's very likely your neighborhood is going to see some value drop. You're going to see some, flooded out homes sold on the cheap because people are desperate and want to get out and they're more motivated than you are. You're also going to see some of those properties turn into short sales and foreclosures and the domino effect that comes along with that. So just because your home didn't get hit doesn't mean you won't see a value drop. Similarly, again, if your neighborhood didn't have any flooding out or any major catastrophe, that's a good sign. If your neighborhood, as well as the neighboring neighborhoods that would be comparables in an appraisal or in a CMA from a real estate agent didn't get hit, then you're in even better shape for holding the value. But the belief is, And I think most data is pointing us in the direction that we're going to see a value drop across our market entirely. And the reason why is because a lot of our demand that's driven our market for so long has been people moving here and selling them the sunshine and rainbows lifestyle of Tampa Bay. Well, it's kind of hard to sell that right now because when you drive around certain neighborhoods or some of the more desirable spots, it looks like a war zone. If you drive down the coastal areas or in some of the low-lying areas in South Tampa with gutted houses with everything out in the street, it's kind of hard to sell the lifestyle of, hey, look, move here and it's going to be amazing. That's going to zap people's demand. And it's going to be on people's mind for a while. It's going to zap demand because people are going to expect insurance to rise, and it's already astronomically high for people. And it's going to be a fear for people. Well, if I just keep renting, then I don't lose all this money, because there are plenty of consumers out there that didn't have flood insurance that are in flood zone X or in non-evacuation zones that got flooded. Okay. And I want to talk about that next. Okay. So if you didn't get hit from this storm, or if you got negligible damage and you're in a non-flood zone and you don't have flood insurance, I want you to listen up to what I'm going to talk about after the break. And, I want to give you some advice. I want to point you in the right direction, because there are a lot of people that didn't have flood insurance that are now losing everything. So I don't want you to make that same mistake again. So we're going to talk about that after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. Andrew Duncan at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Always putting out real estate news and information every Sunday at 10 o'clock. And again, at the Duncan Duo when we aren't on air, and duncanduo.com for a quick cash offer. If you've got a home that was damaged, if you want out, if you if you're ready to move, or if you just simply want to put your non-damaged home on the market, traditionally, you can do all that and more at duncanduo.com. So I talked before the break about people in non-flood zones that got damaged by the storm. And I've gotten multiple calls this week from consumers who call and say, hey, I'm going to sell what I have left because my house flooded. It's totaled. It's 6 figures in damage, and I don't have flood insurance. Now, there are some paths where you could potentially get FEMA to pick up something, or you can potentially get your homeowners to cover some of the stuff that wasn't damaged by water. But the reality is there are a lot of people that are just going to be, SOL basically with their claims and with their ability to get any money back. We are on a peninsula in Tampa. The only determining factor, the main determining factor for how flood insurance is calculated, is the elevation of your property. Not necessarily the proximity to water, not how well your street drains, not how often your area of town floods, simply the elevation. It is a very archaic, backward system that has a lot of flaws, similar to a lot of things designed by the government. If you're someone that trusts the government, good for you. If you're someone that doesn't trust the government, you probably shouldn't trust being told whether or not you're required or not required to have insurance by your lender, flood insurance. So if you live in Tampa, get flood insurance. If you're not in a flood zone, it's pretty inexpensive. A few $100s a year, maybe up to $1,000, depending on the value of your property. If you have it, you're going to be protected, and you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that if one of these massive storms hits again, you'll be covered, because you don't want to make the mistake that so many consumers made and said, oh, I wasn't required to have flood insurance by my lender, or my realtor told me I didn't have to have flood insurance. Well, you maybe don't have to, okay? That doesn't mean you shouldn't get it, especially if you're not in a flood zone. If you're not in a flood zone, the cost of the insurance is nominal compared to a few trips to Starbucks every single month, and that's probably what your flood insurance is going to cost. You should be getting flood insurance right now. If this storm missed you and you're in a non-flood zone, okay, or you're in a flood zone and maybe you paid cash and you're not, you don't have a lender, so you don't have to have it, you should get flood insurance. Please get flood insurance. I looked at, my portfolio, and I made some decisions. I looked at some properties and said, man, I probably don't really need to get flood insurance, but it's cheap and I got it. Okay. And you should too. Don't make the mistake that a lot of people made and trust the government to determine the likelihood of whether or not their property is going to flood. So strong proponent of getting flood insurance. And again, if you're buying a home, if you're in a home, please strongly consider flood insurance, even if it's not required by your lender or if you're not in a FEMA flood zone. So again, you're listening to the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. I touched in the first segment about impacts of the FEMA 50% rule. If you missed that, go back to iHeart's website, check out our podcast. We'll also put videos up on our YouTube channel about this show, and you can learn more about what that means with the 50% rule. And I also talked about short sales and foreclosures because they are going to be an inevitable response to what happened with the storms. There are people that didn't have insurance, that are very high on their mortgage or have high interest rates, don't have equity, and the value drops in certain neighborhoods are going to cause short sales and foreclosures, which is going to pull values down. Now, do I think we're going to see a massive number of short sales and foreclosures like we might have seen back in the Great Recession? No, I don't. I simply think that people that bought in the last year or two that don't have enough equity to make up the difference between the repair costs of their home and what it's worth, that crowd of people that has maybe higher interest rates or not a lot of equity, that crowd of people are going to be the ones most likely to have some dire consequences of both Helene and Milton. So if you are someone that needs help with a short sale, we want to apply for the job of helping you. We have helped hundreds of consumers through the year through short sales. We're working with a few families now doing short sales, and we've done a lot of them. I want to advise you, if you know someone thinking about doing a short sale, please send them our way. Please do not let them go to their realtor that's never done one before. Their uncle's, brother's, cousin's friend that wants to do it on the cheap. Short sales are not easy. They're much more complicated transactions. They require an experience level of agents to know the steps in the process and to give the clients the right advice. If you or someone you know needs help avoiding foreclosure and doing a short sale because of the storm or because of your own financial situation, you can also go to duncanduo.com. We have a division of our title agency that helps facilitate and negotiate short sales. We can point you in the direction of attorneys, but fill out a form at duncanduo.com. When we reach out or when you fill in the comments box, just let us know that you're looking to do a short sale, and we would love the opportunity to help get you to your next step. It is generally better for credit reporting. It is a better recovery than going all the way to foreclosure, and it is the right path for some consumers. Not all consumers, but it's the right path for some. So if you need help with a short sale, and a short sale is basically you selling the home for less than what is owed because you don't have the money to make up the difference. If you have to move, if you get a job relocation, or if you just don't have the financial means to make up the difference between what is owed and what it's now worth because of storms or other reasons, then you would be a candidate for a short sale. So again, hit us up at duncanduo.com if you need help with that. You can also text us to set up a confidential consultation with our team. 813-359-8990 to text us. Again, 813-359-8990. And we'll be back after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. And when we aren't on air, follow us at the Duncan Duo or hit up duncanduo.com for a free on value estimate, an instant cash offer, or if you're looking to do a short sale and avoid foreclosure, we'd love the opportunity to assist you. I want to talk next to home buyers. Buying a home got a little bit more complicated with these storms. It's a little bit more of a process for your inspection. And I want to give you some tips. So home buyer tips of things that can protect you making the right choice for buying a property, negotiating, and getting through the inspection process. First and foremost, as I mentioned earlier in the show, just because a specific home doesn't have a negative consequence of the storm, in other words, the home didn't get damaged, doesn't mean the value of that property may or may not be at risk. Drive around the neighborhood and see, does it appear that a lot of the homes on the street were gutted and have their belongings in the street and a drywall and all that? If that is the case, it's very likely you're going to see some downward pressure on prices in that neighborhood, even if the home you're looking at buying wasn't impacted, okay? So from a value perspective, the safest neighborhoods from a value perspective to buy in right now are neighborhoods that don't have that going on, that don't have a lot of gutted houses, that don't have massively damaged or flooded homes. And the neighboring neighborhoods also have that, okay? Because an appraiser sometimes looks out to a mile, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, depending on the number of home sales for that particular comparable property. So you want to know within that radius, there isn't a lot of storm damage and activity. And in that case, those are homes that are a little bit safer from a value perspective to purchase right now. Extra things to look for though. You want to look for lines in the drywall. You want to look for lines in the garage. There's a water line that salt water leaves or that rainwater leaves when it's dirty, where you can see if a home was flooded. You want to have equipment inspected. You want to look things that are low lying. You want to look for rust. Those are all signs that there is storm damage. So you want to look for those things, okay? So hire an inspector and make sure the inspector's looking for signs of flood or water damage, not just in the roof, but in the foundation, in the garage. There are extra things that you're going to have to look out for when you're buying a home in a market where there was storm damage. Another thing, I mentioned this before, make sure to get properly insured, to get flood insurance, even if you're not required to have it by your lender. Even if you buy cash and you don't have to have any insurance, get flood insurance. There are way too many people losing everything right now that don't have it, that should have had it, because if you're not in a flood zone, it's very inexpensive. So home buyers, another thing to pay attention to, in addition to knowing whether or not the neighborhood was hit and whether or not the home was damaged, look for homes that advocate for whether or not they were damaged, and look for homes that have features that become more desirable right now. Things like dual pane windows, impact doors, higher quality garage doors, generators, elevated homes that were built up with a porch into the house to make them more safe and not as susceptible to flooding. So those are features of homes that are going to become more valuable now. They're going to get accentuated. You're going to see MLS listings that are now going to make sure to mention those things that might have just been a footnote before, or might have just been a box checked on a feature list in MLS, are now going to be bold in capital letters, asterisk. They're going to say, hey, make sure to pay attention to these things because it's important. It is the market of the moment right now. So people are going to want to buy properties that have, a safer, situation with flooding. So if that is something that matters to you, again, those are things buyers need to pay attention to right now, when they're out looking at property. Flood lines, signs of rust, signs of flood damage, asking inspectors to looking at what's gone on in that neighborhood, ask for if there are claims on the property. That's another thing you could do. You can have an insurance agent run a claims history on the property. There are going to be some people who are going to slop together some houses. If you're buying homes in coastal areas, be very cautious about buying homes that look turnkey, because they may have been slopped back together. They may have had that drywall thrown back on, no remediation done properly, and a couple of years down the line, you buy the house, and if you don't properly inspect it and it's infested with mold, and you got a major problem on your hands. So those are some tips for buyers right now. Sellers, you can kind of take what I said to buyers and spin it to your way. If you have a home that has those features, you want them accentuated in the marketing. Our team, for example, is going through every one of our listings and making sure to accentuate the ones that had no observable, because we can't know for sure whether or not there's damage, no observable damage from the storms. And so we're advocating that. We're advocating if a property is higher elevated, or if it's in a non-evacuation zone, or if it has a generator, or if it has impact windows. All of those things become more valuable when people are afraid of damage and the consequences of the storm. So again, those are some things I think you pay attention to as both buyers and sellers right now. And if you are a seller and you're thinking about selling and you want a cash offer, you want out quick, you got to do a short sale, any of those things, go to DuncanDuo.com. Again, that's DuncanDuo.com. I want to talk next about what I think is going to happen in the different segments of the market. I've talked about this last week, but I want to keep reiterating it because I'm getting a lot of questions from people saying things like, hey, what do you think is going to happen with the real estate market? That would be like asking someone what the temperature is in the United States of America today, because the real estate market is so hyper-local that you can't possibly know what's going to happen, not just in a neighborhood, an area, or a city, but now in a product type. It isn't just about whether the area was flooded, it's what kind of product type are you selling. So to give you an example of the properties that I think are going to be hit the hardest, that are going to be harder to sell, where you're going to see more depreciation. I think single-story homes in low-lying areas where there was a lot of flood and where the 50% rule comes into play. Those are going to be the ones that are hit the hardest. Those are going to be the ones where you're going to see a lot more likely those homes not getting rebuilt and two-story homes going in their place. Okay? You're going to see that a lot more common. In areas where maybe the structure value is a little bit higher, you're not going to run into that as much. So I think those low-lying areas with one-story single-family homes, FEMA doesn't want those rebuilt, and I think those are the areas that are going to get hit hardest on value. Now, where are areas where I think the market's going to do well? I mentioned this before, but if you have a neighborhood and all the surrounding neighborhoods and those weren't hit, I think those homes are going to do better than others right now because you're not going to have the likelihood of a short sale or a fire sale on some homes, and homes are going to hold their value a little bit better. You're also a target in some of those suburb areas that are non-coastal for the people that have expensive homes in coastal areas that have to have somewhere to move. So I think suburbs, new construction, newer homes that are built, homes that are built to higher construction standards, and areas that, let's face it, gutted homes aren't up and down the street because people that are moving here, they want to buy a lifestyle. They don't want to buy into a neighborhood right now unless they want to get an incredible deal with your drywall at the end of your driveway. Just isn't going to happen. People don't want to buy into that unless they're an investor and they're looking to capitalize and they want a deal. If you're talking about a regular homeowners want to buy in neighborhoods that look like the sunshine and rainbows Florida has been selling for decades. They want to buy into a neighborhood that gutted houses aren't out on the curb. So those are the neighborhoods that are going to do better. The ones that had the least damage, the ones that are built to higher construction standards, the suburbs, and those mid-level price ranges, okay? Those mid-level price ranges because now they have more of an audience, okay? In other words, not just the people that are looking to move here and buy that $400,000 or $500,000 house, but now the people that have $2 and $3 million houses on the coast that got destroyed need a place to stay, and they can afford a $400,000 or $500,000 house. They don't want to buy another home in the danger zone that exists on the beach right now. They want to buy a home somewhere else and stay close enough that they can keep an eye on their property and then sell that property a year or two down the line. So that targeted market of the suburbs and new construction, the $500,000 price range, which is kind of our mid-level market, that market is probably one of the markets that's going to perform well. A segment of the market I think is going to perform better as well are condos. Now, look, it is no secret. I talked about this before the storm. Our condo market in Pinellas County right now and in Sarasota County, not as bad in Hillsborough, but in Sarasota and Pinellas, we have a lot more of them, is very much a buyer's market right now. 13 months supply of inventory. That's as high as I saw during some of the Great Recession days. So 13 months supply of inventory is a lot. And I think that's going to soften a little bit. Here's why. I think there are plenty of consumers out there that have money that want to stay in Tampa Bay, but they don't want to deal with another storm, or they need a place to live in that maybe isn't quite as much maintenance, that isn't as stressful, that doesn't require them to deal with as much while they work through the damage at their core main property. So I think condos, similar to those houses out in the burbs, will do well, especially condos that are elevated and off the ground, second, third, fourth, and higher floors. I think we're going to see a little bit of an improvement in our condo market. Now, do I think our condo market is going to turn into a raving seller's market? No. I said a slight improvement. If we were seeing 13 months supply of inventory, I think that's going to improve a little bit. It's still going to be a buyer's market. We still have a lot of issues to work through in our condo market because of the milestone surveys, the increase in insurance, and the increase in HOA fees, which is going to continue. All of that is going to continue. However, a condo you can plug in, you can move right into, you can get right back to living. You don't have the chaos all around you. You're not seeing drywall at the end of your driveway. You have a much lower risk and greater protection against flood or storm damage. And even if you do have storm or flood damage, it's someone else's responsibility to deal with it. So I think there are going to be segments of our population, demographically as well as financially, that say, you know what, I'm going to stop living in this single family home on the coast. I'm not going to rebuild it, or FEMA isn't going to let me rebuild it because of the FEMA 50% rule, and I'm going to move into a condo, but I want to stay in Tampa Bay. And of course, you're also going to get some people that are going to say, I'm out entirely. And we're getting some of those. We're getting calls every day from people that say, I'm fed up. I don't want to deal with this ever again. My house is flooded too many times. I want to move. And that's going to happen too. So if you're someone that needs to sell, you want to sell fast, you want to sell your distressed property, you want to sell your damaged property, you want to sell your home that's now only worth land because of the damage, we can help you with all of those things and more. You get a free value estimate, you get an instant cash offer, and we'll help you sell traditionally if that's the path you want to go. at duncanduo.com. Again, that is duncanduo.com. And make sure, again, we're always putting out good, relevant information, whether it's the FEMA 50% rule, whether it's what's going on in the marketplace, whatever it is, we're here to help, and we're here to help point you in the right direction. I want to wrap the show with our last segment, and I want to talk about kind of the predatory behavior that's happening in a lot of neighborhoods right now by people trying to steal your home. Look, I've got a track record, thousands of reviews on Google, been in this marketplace for 20 years. We'll help you sell traditionally, but we can also give you the cash offer. We'll give you both, and we'll let you pick. We're going to be transparent, and we're going to be transparent, honest with you about what we're going to do to the property and what our margins look like. There are a lot of predatory home buyers out there moving into the marketplace or trying to wholesale your property. They're trying to get your property under contract and then sell the paper to someone else and make a quick buck on you. And I want to talk about that after a quick break to help avoid you giving away your equity in that situation, and avoiding wholesalers, avoiding the people that are knocking on your door trying to bring you a buyer or knocking on your door trying to buy your house, after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. And unfortunately, with crisis comes opportunity. And with what's going on in Tampa Bay right now, there's no question there are a lot of people predatory chasing the opportunity of buying homes and damaged homes in neighborhoods. So I want to give you some advice here if you have a damaged home or if you're in a home that has some damage. First and foremost, if someone is knocking on your door to buy your home, they're probably not very good at what they do. If they have to knock on your door and be an ambulance chaser for your business, you probably should be very skeptical about trusting them, because if they were really good at what they do, they wouldn't be knocking on your door. They'd be advertising, or they'd run a business that's so good that their clients keep coming back and referring more people to them. So whoever is coming to buy your house, you want to Google them. You want to Google them. You want to look at the reviews. You want to see how legitimate they and their company are. You want to know whether or not they intend to buy and close on your house, or whether they're just some wholesaler who simply wants to put your home under contract and then find an end buyer and eat up some of your equity. You don't need a wholesaler to eat off 20, 30, 50, 100 grand of your equity. A real estate agent can do that, and our commission fees are going to be a lot lower than that. We can find you a retail consumer. We can also give you a cash offer that is going to be closed on, not wholesaled. We don't represent wholesale offers. We're not coming to wholesale your property. If my investment fund is giving you a cash offer, we intend on closing on it as long as we can get through the inspection process and confirm the condition is as described. But there are a lot of people out there knocking on doors for business and trying to be predatory and take advantage of people in vulnerable situations. And I want to caution you against doing that. Strongly recommend you get multiple opinions. You don't invite somebody into your house. You don't sign a contract until you've had somebody else look at it, get multiple opinions, and then read the contract. Read the contract. I cannot tell you how many times we get sellers call us and say, hey, we want to help you. We want you to help us sell our home, but we have a contract. And then you read the contract and you can't believe someone agreed to that contract. If you are not smart enough to interpret and understand the contract, call a lawyer. Pay a lawyer for their advice. Call a real estate agent. They'll help you too. We can't give you legal advice, but we can at least let you know, some of the terms and conditions and if it's a wholesaler or not, okay? So please, please, please be very cautious about who you enter into contract right now. Look at the reputation of the person you're dealing with. Know the reputation of the person you're dealing with. Know that they're being honest with you. Know that they're not a wholesaler, because if they're a wholesaler, they don't intend on closing your property. They intend on finding someone else to close on it and then making a quick buck and moving on to the next dragon to slay, okay? If you are entering into a contract, please read it. Please get a second opinion. Please don't get taken advantage of. Next, if you have a storm-damaged property and you are fighting with insurance, you have to be very cautious about trying to sell your home while you're fighting for an insurance claim. You need to get paid first. I've seen people not read the terms of their policy and then sell their property before they get paid out and then get denied a claim. Make sure you have it in writing, okay, that you can sell your property, that you will get paid the value of your claim after the fact, even if you don't own the property anymore. Please understand that. Don't give the insurance company a reason to not pay you. You've paid for that insurance. You filed a rightful claim. You need to make sure to navigate through that and know where you're at with the claim process before you think about selling. You don't want to make the mistake of selling and then hurting your ability to collect the insurance money after the fact. And I mentioned before, and I'll mention it again in case you're just jumping into the end of the show. I want to summarize what the 50% rule is because it's going to impact a lot of people right now. The 50% rule says that you cannot repair, modify, improve a property at a cost that exceeds 50% of the value of the structure, not the value of the property. You subtract the value of the land to get the value of the structure. So most of the counties have this number on their website. You can also get a private party appraisal value. So to give you an example, FEMA, the reason they do this, they don't want to keep paying for flood insurance payouts on single-story homes that keep flooding. They want to make a lot of these neighborhoods 2- and 3-story homes so they don't have to pay out flood claims all the time because the only thing that floods is the garage. So if you have a home, let's say the whole thing's worth $500,000 and your land's worth $200,000. So your structure is worth $300,000. Now that's obviously very simple math. Not every situation is going to be simple math. And you got a $200,000 flood payout, you're not going to get that permitted. And you run the risk of maybe not getting insurance or causing yourself a problem later down the line selling your property. You need to navigate cautiously through the area of rebuilding your home if you're up against those numbers. Okay? Please be cautious with it. Please understand it. Please know I don't want you to go down the line and renovate your home and then find out you can't get insurance or you can't sell it or there's a problem or you did it without a permit and then the new buyer wants a permit and then you got to have stuff yanked out and redone because you did it without a permit. So the 50% rule exists basically to protect FEMA. They don't want to keep reinsuring homes that continually flood, and they want areas that continually flood a lot, in essence, to become 2-story home properties. It's kind of they're not saying that's the purpose, but that's the purpose. And that's what you see if you drive around parts of Louisiana that flooded bad, a lot of 2-story built up garage on the first floor or elevated, a few feet of elevation from a porch into the house to try and make it so that it's less likely to flood. So hopefully that's been helpful for you. Again, when we aren't on air, at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and DuncanDuo.com to sell your home, to get a quick cash offer or home value estimate. Again, at DuncanDuo.com. We hope you're pushing through the storm. Hopefully some of this information was helpful for you today. If it was, please share the information with friends and family. If you have friends and family that are struggling with some of this stuff, please share it with them. Please go to our social media. We'll post the whole video on YouTube as well as on the iHeart site. You can share the podcast. And we'll be back next week chatting more about the Tampa Bay real estate market. Have a great rest of your Sunday, Tampa Bay.